Hello everyone and welcome back to Art History Shorts. It's been a while since my last video, but I had started a series where I wanted to talk about paintings that depicted mythological stories. The first one was about Raphael's Galatea, and you can check that one out if you're interested in this series. It would have been easy for me to continue choosing paintings from the Renaissance period since paintings that depicted Greek myths was a popular subject matter during that time. But I wanted to challenge myself and show paintings from different art movements. Greek mythology is just so ripe with amazing complex stories to depict, and it was an inspiration for so many artists and continues to be so today. So the artist that I wanted to talk about today is Giorgio de Chirico and his painting Ariadne. I could have chosen from a number of his paintings that look much like this one. He painted 8 alone in his first metaphysical series between 1912 and 1913. But I went with the simply titled Ariadne from 1913 because it's much easier to pronounce than the ones in Italian. And if you've watched any of my videos where I talk about French or Japanese artists, you will understand my hesitation. But also the reason for choosing it is its direct relationship to the tragic story of Ariadne. Looking at the painting Ariadne, unless you knew the story or the myth, you wouldn't have the context behind what's going on in this painting. There is a sad quality to it, a feeling of bareness, and you can even get a feeling of despair or desolation in the absence of seeing anything cheerful. There's also this surface layer of symbology with the woman being a statue or made of stone. De Chirico, I have to admit, for as much as I don't love this painting or his work, he really does capture this one moment in Ariadne's story kind of perfectly. Because what's behind Ariadne's complete desolate loneliness is the Greek hero Theseus's abandonment of her. This myth is absolutely one of my favorites. It has everything a good story needs: love, betrayal, honor, a creepy dungeon maze, and more. To set the scene, so to speak, you have King Minos of Crete, who angers Poseidon, and as punishment has King Minos' wife fall in love with a bull, and then she gives birth to a half-bull, half-man creature called the Minotaur. King Minos hides the Minotaur away in a giant labyrinth and imprisons his enemies in there, where they can't find their way out and are killed by the Minotaur. He also, through a series of events, gets Athens to send over 14 sacrifices every 9 years, 7 men and 7 women, to be given to the Minotaur. Theseus, the son of the Athenian king, decides he's going to put an end to this practice and volunteers to be sent over. Ariadne, daughter of King Minos, falls in love with Theseus, and when she learns of his plan, decides to help him. She gives him a ball of thread that he unravels and uses to find his way back out of the labyrinth after he finds and kills the Minotaur. Theseus then leaves with Ariadne, promising to take her back to Athens with him, but on the way he leaves her sleeping on the island of Naxos. There are other versions of how this myth ends, but since this is the way de Chirico chooses to interpret the story, I'll leave it there. De Chirico left his home in Greece and later settled in Paris, but he wrote letters about his homesickness. Many critics connect these feelings with his art and why he was drawn to this particular story, that he connected with Ariadne's own feelings of loneliness and isolation. And you can really feel that when you view this painting. There are these big blocks of dark colors, the palette is muted, everything is painted in very simple shapes, with only Ariadne's drapery having any real detail to it. And Ariadne looks like a statue in these paintings because he was in fact inspired by a statue of Ariadne. There are multiple versions of a Roman copy of the Greek sculpture Sleeping Ariadne, and de Chirico pulls from these different statues to create his Ariadne. In this painting, there are suggestions of a world around the statue, with the train coming in from the left and the wall arches stretching on below. This isn't a contained world, and yet Ariadne is made of stone. She's immovable and stuck here among the shadows. The transportation we see, the ship's sails and the train, these objects of movement that represent movement, are back behind a brick wall. She's isolated. So this is where I really surprised myself because I found myself connecting with this painting and I never thought that I would. I have never been a fan of de Chirico's work because I found it repetitive and boring. But after studying this piece and thinking about this myth, I realized maybe I'm not that different from him because the part of the story that has always stuck with me is that after everything Ariadne did for Theseus, he still left her all alone. She left her whole world behind. She betrayed her family for this guy and he just abandons her. And that is the part that de Chirico is trying to capture, and I get it. I get why he would focus on this part. It's in some ways, I think, the most relatable aspect of this myth, the most human aspect. It's heartbreaking, and that heartbreak is beautiful. And I never thought that I would use the word beautiful when talking about this painting. I just love that this myth is so rich in feeling and emotion, and his interpretation of it is so cold and bare. I'm also kind of fascinated by him because his paintings, they influenced surrealist artists, but he also did something that was, for the most part, kind of ahead of his time. Today, if there's an artist who paints an original painting and then also sells prints of it, or even creates a painting that looks pretty similar to the first painting, we wouldn't say they were plagiarizing themselves. Demand for his earlier paintings, especially those done in his metaphysical phase like Ariadne, was very high. And being the enterprising artist that he was, he would duplicate these paintings. He called these paintings true fakes and didn't believe that what he was doing was copying. He believed that the artists owned their ideas and could do whatever they wanted with them. And it was the idea that was important, that collectors could buy the paintings, but they couldn't also then buy the idea. I am many years on my art history journey later, still learning this lesson of appreciation, that the more I learn about a painting or an artist, the more I open up to it. Before, I would have had no problem with dismissing de Chirico and his many paintings on this subject matter. I would have called them boring and moved on. But now it's almost impressive to me how he could take such a rich mythological story with so much happening. I mean, there's a half bull, half man fighting in a labyrinth, for goodness sake. And he takes this story and he loses the action and makes it so bland with this barren wasteland. We don't even have a real woman to look at, just a statue and the feeling of loss, loneliness, and abandonment. There is definitely a lot more I could go into on de Chirico and his philosophy on art, but maybe I'll save that for a future video. So for now, I really hope you enjoyed this quick look at de Chirico's Ariadne, and if so, consider subscribing to the channel or maybe like the video. It really does mean a lot to me. And so thanks everyone, I'll see you next time.